Hello, my name is Donna Al-Salem, and I'm absolutely delighted to be part of BizFit 2020 online. I'd like to talk today about innovation and entrepreneurship. Where does innovation stem from? What qualities do entrepreneurs share? So, most of you probably started your morning with this. What you may not realize is this simple drink had a major impact on an entire movement of innovation in the UK. Until the 18th century, it was unsafe to drink water, so people drank cider, ale, beer, gin, and brandy instead. They would start with ale for breakfast, move on to gin at lunch, and end with sherry. Everyone was basically drunk all day. Now, something happened in 1650 that would not only change these habits, but would contribute to the Age of Enlightenment: the birth of the coffee house. People from all walks of life swarm to meet, drink, think, write, gossip, and debate. It would cost 1 penny for entrance and unlimited refills. This allowed for a plethora of guests from all social backgrounds and experiences to interact. The switch from booze to coffee not only contributed to people being more alert, more awake, but the diverse environment also led to a hub of ideas, exchanges, and innovation. It brought people and ideas together. It offered a place for curious minds to gather and discuss. From political events to scientific theories to finance or discoveries from around the globe. Poets, playwrights, journalists, members of the public, scientists, bankers gathered all around a long wooden table, thinking, writing, debating, and discussing for hours. This was an environment that inspired brilliant ideas. Merchants, ship captains, cartographers, and stockbrokers built the insurance industry at Lloyd's over coffee. The coffee houses near the Royal Society galvanized scientific breakthroughs. So, as we look at how the coffee houses have led to some major breakthroughs in innovation in the 18th century, we must ask ourselves, are there environments in which innovation stems from? Similar trends we see across innovation, patterns that we see lead to innovation, or ways to study these characteristics and apply them to our own lives or organizations to stimulate innovation. Perhaps we should start by changing our perception of what innovation means. Often we tend to imagine innovation as a split-second moment, using terms like eureka, light bulb, flash, stroke, epiphany. We tend to picture moments of innovation like this, the Archimedes eureka moment. We imagine that innovation comes from a single thought, a single illuminating moment in time, that it is an isolated idea, but it's not. An idea comes from a network of sparks connecting small hunches together. It's our neurons firing off in our brain. It is a fluid network in which the configuration, the way we think of a problem, is different. So, what environments can we put ourselves in to foster more of these different connections? How can we create more of these sparks? Manshuk Prajapati is a Gujarati clay roofer who had no formal education. His village was destroyed in an earthquake in 2001. In the press clippings showing the devastation, he spotted a headline under a water filter saying, "The broken fridge of the poor." He was inspired to build a fridge for the poor, which would be self-sustaining in the event of another earthquake. Between 2001 and 2004, he painstakingly tested clays and soils, building hundreds of prototypes. He had to sell his house to repay his loans. He consulted with local organizations and other clay experts for advice on evaporation processes. He asked people for feedback on his prototype at local trade shows. And finally, in 2005, this is what he released.
ये मिट्टी का ब्लेड मल्टीपल ब्लेड है। इसकी खास विशेषता यह है कि इसमें बिजली की जरूरत नहीं है और इसमें सिर्फ पानी भरने का, पानी 10 लीटर पीने के लिए ठंडा मिलते हैं और अंदर के हिस्से में सब्जियां, फ्रूट, मिल्क जो कुछ रखने का है वो सब कुछ आप रख सकते हैं। और इसके बाद हमने बनाया है मिट्टी को वाटर फिल्टर। जो मिट्टी को वाटर फिल्टर की विशिष्टता ये है कि ये मिट्टी का है, इसमें 0.9 माइक्रोन वाली मिट्टी की फिल्टर कैंडल लगाई हुई है। ये कैंडल के अंदर के हिस्से में दो कैंडल की वजह से नीचे से पानी टपक टपक आते हैं और वो पानी नीचे के बॉक्स के अंदर आएंगे। वो पानी एकदम ठंडा और क्लीन मिलते हैं, जो गरीबों का आरो प्लान है और हमारा ये मिट्टी को वाटर फिल्टर है।
So you see, Manchuk had a hunch, the small spark of the beginning of an idea. He had some basic knowledge of clay and its behaviors to cooling. He knew what the parameters and limitations on resources were: no electricity, low spend. But he collaborated with others, testing and tinkering, for 3 years before he even had a prototype. He then got customer feedback and repeatedly improved his product with this. This is what innovation is. It's a series of ideas that are cobbled together. Ideas do not happen in a vacuum. They come from external stimuli. We take ideas from what we've read, seen, other people's ideas, people we overhear in the coffee house, and we sew them together into something new. So perhaps our perception of what deep thinking or where ideas or innovation comes from also needs to change. We imagine deep thinking and innovative thoughts like this: The Thinker, Le Penseur by Rodin. In fact, the spaces that have led to innovation tend to look like this. This coffee house illustrates the type of chaotic environment that leads to innovative thought. It's a place where exciting, unexpected ideas can come together. So if you want to encourage innovation, perhaps your office should look like this. We often think of a scientist hunched over his microscope when suddenly he jumps up with, "Eureka!" But in reality, there is no eureka moment. Innovation comes from an environment where ideas collide and rub up against each other. An analyst, Kevin Dunbar, wanted to figure out where innovation comes from. So he taped scientists in a lab over months, doing the most minute tasks in front of their microscopes, by the water cooler, having coffee in weekly meetings. What he discovered was that the breakthrough moments did not happen when a scientist was alone in front of their microscope. They actually happened at the weekly lab meetings, where everyone shared their findings, their data, and also their mistakes. There was something in that environment, something in those discussions where conversation flowed between these people. This fluid network of ideas, observations, and mistakes were exchanged between people of different interests and backgrounds. This exchange of ideas, jostling and bouncing off each other, is where innovation starts. Psychologically, people want to tell the story of the eureka moment. There is something in our ego that wants a claim to fame. But by analyzing data, we discover that innovation has a long incubation period. It happens over time whilst new concepts are being pieced together. An idea can linger over long periods of time in the back of our minds. An idea may not fully mature until we have all the tools to make it feasible. Or we may need to have an experience or another person who can help us trigger the idea into a real innovation. So, how do you create an environment that enables these ideas to grow and mature over time? Some companies have mechanisms for employees to be encouraged to work on and cultivate hunches into ideas. Often, these mechanisms not only encourage new ideas, but also enable employees to connect their ideas together. Take Toyota as an example. The culture of incremental innovation ensures all employees know innovation is a job requirement woven into the business practices. Katsuaki Watanabe said, "We just do whatever we believe is right, trying every day to improve every little bit and piece. But when 70 years of very small improvements accumulate, they become a revolution." Over the last 35 years, employee innovation suggestions have gone up from zero point 0.1 to 48 per employee. At Netflix, the culture of innovation begins with the employee selection process. Netflix looks for 9 specific values in each employee: judgment, communication, impact, curiosity, innovation, courage, passion, honesty, and selflessness. Reed Hastings runs Netflix with a freedom and responsibility culture, allowing employees to expand on ideas and take risks, but also expects responsibility from them. Some companies have innovation time built into the working process. At 3M, employees are paid for spending 15% of their time creating whatever they want. They can raise their ideas up to senior management for development. The Post-it note was created by employees this way. Google has a similar system. It pays employees for spending 20% of their time on creating new products. Innovative companies focus on reinvention, on questioning their market position, and always looking forward. Many companies that were once great are gone, largely because they stopped innovating. According to Forbes, the average lifespan of a successful S&P 500 company was 67 years in the 1920s. Today, it's 15 years. You need to innovate and not rest on your laurels. You have to risk failure to continue to achieve great success. Creating a culture of innovation is important for any organization that wants to grow. Successful innovators focus on what matters most rather than spending efforts and resources on the less critical. More importantly, successful innovators make the hard choices on what not to focus on. With better focus and alignment, they're able to innovate more effectively and go to market more efficiently. So, what about investment in research and development? Surely this can help increase innovation. What Booz and Company has discovered is that the top most innovative companies are not necessarily the top research and development spenders. 450 innovation experts at 400 companies were interviewed to identify the top 10 most innovative. 7 of the top 10 innovators were not amongst the top 10 spenders on innovation. Many of the top innovators actually spent well below their industry averages on research and development as a percentage of sales. More importantly, the top 10 innovators turned in better financial performances than the top 10 spenders in research and development. So you can spend a lot on innovation, but you can't guarantee success. Is there a type of person or a profile of an innovator? What is an innovator? An ideas person? Innovators are nonconformists. They not only have new ideas, but take action to champion them. To learn how to be a bit more like them, we need to understand what their behavior is like. Innovators make meaning as opposed to making money. Making meaning means you aim to change the world. If you change the world, you will probably make money. But if you start off with the sole desire to make money, you won't make money, you won't make meaning, you won't change the world, and you will probably fail. Here are some people making meaning.
When I say pitch black, I really mean pitch black. There were no street lights. This one caused, I would say about 2 million people to be thrown into darkness. So people have been living in Tacloban for a month in darkness.
Nung mga unang gabi na ng typhoon, ang hirap tanggapin, lalo na ang dilim. Wala kaming halos ilaw dahil walang tumutulog pa sa amin noon.
Ang mga puko ay nag-iiyakan sa gabi. Mahirap makabili ng petrolyo.
First, that run out were batteries. The second were candles. The last was kerosene. There was no more ways of bringing in fuel. You would have to have something that is rechargeable. The biggest source of that is the sun. We're now in the nightlight. We have taken all that money that Pepsi has put into the development of the daylight and moved it into a night solution. One LED, one solar panel, and sticking in, and they have about 10 hours of light at night. Not only were we the first ones to be able to light up communities there, we were the first ones, and I think the first ones ever, to be able to use people that have been displaced as a solar solution.
Right after ng typhoon, wala akong nakitang hope, walang light. Ngayon, mayroon ng hope sa dami nung putulong sa amin, and then the light has come. Andito na po. Hawak-hawak ko na po.
Another characteristic of innovators is that they are always late to the party. You all know what a procrastinator is. A precrastinator is the opposite. They do everything in advance. To understand impact of personality types on creative thought, a survey was run between precrastinators, moderate procrastinators, and extreme procrastinators. Before starting the test, the three groups were told that they were to invent a company and would have independent readers evaluate how creative and useful their ideas were. Some of them were asked to start the exercise immediately. Some were given a game to play for 5 minutes before starting the exercise, and others were given a game to play for 10 minutes. Interestingly, those who procrastinated moderately had results that were 16% more creative than the other two groups. There was no impact on creativity if they were given the game, then told about the task. Why did this happen? Why did the moderate procrastinators fare higher in creativity? Because for those who were given a short time to play, there was a period of deliberation. During this time, the idea of the company was left in the back of their minds, allowing it to incubate and mature. There are quite a few famous innovators who were procrastinators as well. Leonardo da Vinci took 16 years to complete the Mona Lisa. High-resolution scans have shown that many versions have been edited over to make improvements. While deliberating over the painting, he had time to integrate the first use of aerial perspective and advances in the uses of light. These advances revolutionized art techniques at his time, and today, 6 million visitors still view this painting each year. In 1963, Martin Luther King gave a historic speech at the March on Washington. He was up till 3 a.m. writing his speech and was still editing, rewriting minutes before he went on stage. 11 minutes into his speech, he uttered 4 words that changed history. I have a dream. Those words were not in his script. By delaying the speech writing, he left a window open to improvising, a window to other possible ideas. Innovators are quick to start, but slow to finish. Often it is because they are taking time to figure out how to make their product better than their competitors. These people are called improvers. The first mover advantage is not always true. In a survey across 50 product categories, which assessed failure and success of innovation, first movers versus improvers. First movers had a failure rate of 47%, and the improvers had a failure rate of 8%. Some companies open new markets, others improve upon it. Because it's easier to improve an idea than to create one. So to be innovative, you do not have to be first. You have to be different and better. Do you think that innovators look like this? How do we spot an innovator? Maybe we could use the web browser test to help us identify innovative types. Recently, a study was done on the choice of browsers we use. Users of Firefox and Chrome significantly outperform those who use Microsoft Explorer and Safari in job commitment and performance. They also stay 15% longer in their jobs. There are no major differences between these browsers. They have the same typing speed. They have the same computing in search results. They have similar page loading times. So why would this define a certain personality type? It's how you got the browser. If you use Explorer or Safari, you accepted the default option that came pre-installed on your computer. If you use Firefox or Chrome, you questioned the default browser and looked for other solutions that could exist. You had to be resourceful. You had to find a different browser option, download it, and install it on your computer. If you're asking yourself, if I want to be great at my job, should I just download a new browser? The answer is no. It's about the type of person you are. Are you the kind of person who doubts the default option and takes initiative to find a better solution? Another characteristic of innovators is to feel fear and doubt. Though the perception we may have of innovators and creators is strong or arrogant, they do feel uncertainty. But they express it differently than you may expect. The doubt they feel is not self-doubt, it's ideas doubt. Self-doubt causes people to freeze and be paralyzed. Idea doubt is energizing and stimulating. This is the innovation process most of us go through. This is awesome, this is tricky, this is crap, I am crap, this might be okay. Innovators, however, skip number 4 on the list. They do not make their failures personal. They focus on how to improve the idea that failed. Innovators do feel fear and are afraid of failing, but they are even more afraid of failing to try. Innovators know that our biggest regrets are not our actions, but our inactions. Elon Musk did not think Tesla would succeed. He thought that the first SpaceX launches would fail, but it was too much of a risk not to try. Innovators have many, many bad ideas. The greatest creators are the ones who fail the most because they also try the most. The more output is generated, the more variety and failures there are to learn from. They keep improving and changing again and again. It's about relentless iterations. Dyson created 5,127 versions of his vacuum in prototypes. In spite of the volume of ideas output that leads to diversity. In spite of all the bad ideas that need to be created to find a few good ones. Funnily, we remember the successes, not the failures. When it comes to creating a culture of innovation, what are the key learnings? Make meaning in the world first before thinking of making money. Great ideas are often cobbled together through sharing ideas. Build an environment of diverse ideas, connections, and exchanges. Increased research and development expenditure does not necessarily lead to more innovation. Great innovation often comes through iterations and improvements after many failures. Never be satisfied with the default option. Embrace the fear of failing to try. Procrastination is a vice to productivity, but a virtue for creativity. You need a lot of bad ideas to find a few good ones. Ideas do not happen in a flash. They take time to come into focus. Innovation sometimes happens in the most wonderful and unexpected ways. In 1957, Sputnik had been launched by the Russians. In a physics lab of Johns Hopkins University, all the physics geeks were thinking, "This is incredible, I can't believe this." Geyer and Weifenbach asked their colleagues, "Hey, has anyone tried to listen to the satellite? The satellite must be broadcasting some kind of signal. We could probably tune in and hear it." But their colleagues said, "No, we never thought of trying that." Weifenbach was a microwave reception expert, so he starts fiddling around with this little antenna and amplifier in his office. After a few hours, they pick up a signal and start listening. They think, "This is a breakthrough. We must be the only people in the US to be listening to this Russian satellite." And then they start recording these signals and measuring the timestamps and dates. Using the Doppler effect, checking with colleagues, they managed to calculate the speed of the satellite. And then they thought, we could probably figure out where this is in orbit. They got permission from the university to use the huge UNIVAC computer to run some calculations, and after 4 weeks, figured out the trajectory. A few weeks later, their boss pulled them into a meeting and asked them about their project. "You guys have found the unknown location of a satellite orbiting the planet from a known location on this planet, right? Could you do the opposite? Could you find an unknown location on the planet from a known location of a satellite? Because I have these new nuclear submarines, and I'm trying to figure out how to get the missiles to land on top of Moscow. But I don't know where the submarines are in the middle of the ocean." So they threw up satellites to track their submarines and find their location in the middle of the ocean. This is how GPS was born. 30 years later, Reagan opened the platform so that anyone could build upon it. This is a great example of the unpredictable power of open innovation platforms. When you build them right, they will lead you into completely new directions that you never dreamt of. So we had these scientists who had a hunch. They tinkered their hunch into an idea which they thought was helping win the Cold War, when in fact they were only helping you find the nearest cappuccino. This is how innovation happens. It favors the connected mind. Thank you very much for your time.